Good morning, everybody. My name is Lee Place, and I am Head of Partnerships at Walters Clearer Tax and Accounting. Thank you all for joining today's FD Intelligence webinar. In today's session, I am joined by Andy Guy, CEO of FD Intelligence, and also Dave Clough, the Operations Director. CCH and FD Intelligence have combined to produce an integrated, seamlessly providing end-to-end solution for managing clients' personal tax affairs. This tool automates the extraction and categorization of tax data from clients' documents, significantly reducing the time advisors spend on manual tasks. Some of the impressive stats already being achieved by this partnership are the tool is being used by 40% of the top 50. It's already recognized as a leader in this area. And FD Intelligence has already automated over 1 million transactions. Although the tool is used by 40% of the top 50, FD Intelligence is also used for small and medium sized practices with a minimum of 1,000 tax returns with no upper limits. Following the webinar, we'll have a Q&A session, so please write your questions in the chat box. So we'll start with a quick overview of the product and the platform's capabilities, followed by a hands-on look at some of the core functionalities. So I will now pass you over to Dave and Andy to go through the session.
Thanks very much, Lee. So, good morning all. My name's Andrew Guy. I'm the CEO of FD Intelligence. So the business has been around for just over 4 years. And as Lee mentioned, we've got a real market focus on accountancy. As background, I've been a CIO for many years. I've been within the industry for over 25 years. I was previously at Moore Kingston Smith, where I led their IT function. And yeah, that's got me really excited because I understand the challenges and opportunities that AI and automation can bring to the accountancy market. So yeah, delighted to be with you today and looking forward to presenting what we've got to show. Dave?
Thanks, Andy. Good morning, all. My name's Dave Clough. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at FD Intelligence. Like Andy, I've been in this marketplace for quite a few years, probably coming up to 30 years or so. Might know a number of you on the call today. My background is accountant by trade, but been in technology for the last 30 years. And you might know me from my days at Walters Clearer when I was the CIO at Walters Clearer UK, but always had a great passion for solving problems with technology. And what we're doing at FDI in terms of automation is all about giving, giving back time to your practice and trying to solve that problem of resource and not having enough hours in the day, and introducing virtual workers to assist you in the key tasks, and personal tax is definitely one of those key tasks.
So just a bit of background. So we, as we mentioned, got deep domain knowledge within the accountancy sector. We have a strategic partnership with Walters Clearer, and the product will evolve as their product evolves. And we've got one other strategic partnership, which is UiPath. So UiPath being the global leader and has been for the best part of a decade in automation and AI. So we're one of their platinum competency partners there. And we also, lastly, work with one of the large international networks, advising them on AI and automation at a global level. So just to illustrate what we are talking about, so our software robots can work across any or all applications. We're specifically talking about CCH Personal Tax today, but even with that, we need to integrate with document management systems, for example. So to date, we have integrated with all the platforms. So be it CCH Document Management, iManage, mFiles, all the main vendors we've integrated with. And our software robots work in the C thinking do. So they can visualize, like you and I, and understand what's presented on the screen. So that might be something like a simple P60, P11D bank interest. It can read, understand, extract the relevant information. But now, with the explosion of AI, we can interpret and understand content within email, Excel spreadsheets, lists of information from the likes of Word documents. So it's almost endless what the capabilities of this system is. So we integrate, so using AI, we understand what the information is we need to push into the tax return. And we do that through a combination of techniques. So we use UiPath and use that as the brain to orchestrate across all the different income types. So yeah, we're very capable, and we're operating, processing currently tens of thousands of tax returns this tax season. So, but most importantly, what we don't do is we don't ingest straight into the SA100 tax return. What we do is we present the information back to the tax person to say, do you agree, and get them to validate the information is correct before it's put in. If they need to make adjustments, then the automation learns for next time. So it's a self-evolving learning system. But we'll demonstrate in a second what the capabilities are and also the document types that we're working with.
So in terms of potential, these virtual workers that we put into accountancy practice can help you with all sorts of tasks. We're going to focus on tax compliance during the course of this presentation, but this slide just highlights areas that we've helped accounting practices on, things ranging from other compliance areas like corporation tax and accounts production, into back office functions such as the billing and financial reporting, and then into the sort of onboarding, employee and client onboarding. Fundamentally, you're looking at service lines where you've got repetitive tasks, lots of manual elements, multiple systems, and obviously the staffing challenge that we've mentioned at the outset. And clearly, tax compliance ticks all of those boxes. If we just spend a bit of time now looking at personal tax, and what I want to do is introduce you to a potential new recruit in your firm. It's a really good idea to personify these virtual workers and give them a name. So we've named the personal tax robot or virtual worker. We've named it Peter, which just comes from the acronym Personal Tax Automation Robot. And Peter is being deployed to multiple firms during the course of this tax season, and we estimate Peter will probably be responsible for about 40,000 returns during the course of the 24 personal tax season. And Peter's role is, let's look upon them as a junior tax assistant working in the tax department. And Peter's responsibilities are largely around the collection of the data from the clients and the processing of that data into the CCH personal tax return. And Peter has got many years experience working in tax departments. So although I introduced Peter as a junior, Peter comes into the tax team as almost like a seasoned pro. And I'll just tell you a bit of a story about how Peter came to life. We spent 2 or 3 years bringing this product to market. And after we'd created these large language models which understand tax, what we did then is work with 3 CCH sites to basically test the system. And the test involved rolling back their data to 2022 and getting Peter to recreate the returns from the documents in their document management system, and then compare and contrast the return produced by Peter with the ones produced by their tax advisors, and then we can then just fine tune the models accordingly. So hence the bullet there, many years experience working in tax departments. But Peter's also a quick learner. So as and when Peter's presented with documents that he hasn't seen before, once they've been illustrated or instructed on what to do, Peter will learn from those instructions and apply that knowledge the next time they come across that particular document. And then the beauty of using these virtual workers and robots is they are extremely conscientious and diligent. They're working 24/7. They don't get stressed under pressure. And if they've been trained well, like Peter, their work is extremely accurate. And then finally, Peter will go on training courses and gain new knowledge. So as tax compliance changes, the robots will be armed with the new knowledge. And as and when we extend the functionality, and we'll talk about scope later in the presentation, as we extend the scope, Peter will bring that knowledge into your practice. So if we look at the workflow between your team and Peter and how it's shared out, because as Andy said earlier, one of the key parts in the design and the process flow is this concept of the human in the loop. So on the top half of the screen, in the sort of pinky color, we've got the human intervention side, the human in the loop. And in the lower half of the screen, we have Peter's responsibilities. I'm just going to focus initially on the core functionality of Peter, which starts at the receipt of document side. And we'll come back on to information requests in a moment. But fundamentally, the core solution that Peter works on is documents from your document management system. So how those documents get into the document management system will probably come through various processes that you've got set up. I imagine you'll have emails that are being filed into your document management system. You will have a portal where perhaps information is being moved from the portal into the document management system. And perhaps you'll still have clients with manual documents coming in through the post, and you'll have a digitized process, and they will eventually get into CCH DMS or your document management system of choice. And that is the starting point for Peter. And what we do at implementation with you is we do some configuration work, and we create a to be processed folder across each and every of your personal tax clients. And Peter will be monitoring these folders, and as soon as a document drops in to the client folder, that is the trigger for Peter to go to work. And the first thing Peter will do is he will download the documents into a secure processing area and then run a classification piece. So Peter will basically pick up the document like you and me and look at it and decide what type of document it is. What's the income classification of that document? Is it employment? Is it rental? Is it capital gains? Is it foreign income, etc.? And from that eyeball that Peter performs on the document and the classification piece, it then determines the type of data that Peter will pull out from that document. So he'll then go ahead and perform an extraction piece where he pulls out all of the various text label requirements that are needed for CCH Personal Tax in the data entry side, and obviously all the values associated with that particular piece of income. So all of that is done by Peter, and in the background, just as an aside, we haven't mentioned it on, is mentioned on that classification piece, is Peter also creates for you a working paper, and that working paper takes the form of a bookmark PDF. So all of the documents that Peter has worked on get nicely filed into an organized document, And that document is like a living document during the course of the tax processing season, because unfortunately, I imagine most of your clients don't send everything in at once. They might be coming in dribs and drabs, and Peter will just add new documents to that working paper as and when they are delivered into the document management system and processed. Okay, so Peter's done a lot of work. He then hands it over to the tax advisor to perform a data review. So although Peter could put the information straight into CCH, when we designed the workflows in conjunction with various accounting practices, they said at this point they would like the tax advisor to eyeball the information and validate it before it goes into CCH, because in the early days of adopting these virtual workers, there is an element of trust to be gained. Peter is a new tax joiner in the team, and Andy and Dave say Peter is absolutely brilliant, but you don't trust Peter on day one. So what we allow you to do is review Peter's work before it goes into CCH, and on day one, it's every piece of work that Peter does. But later on, as you get confidence, as your confidence grows with Peter, you can turn the dial down and start to let data flow straight through into the return if you wish. Once the data has been validated, Peter will then pick the data up and open up CCH and open up the client return and post all the data into the return. But he won't do that blindly. He will produce quality data for you because, for example, Peter will look at the existing tax records that are in that client's return and only create new income lines if, for example, you can't find the Barclays bank account and the associated bank number. If you can't, you'll then create a new record. Otherwise, you'll just append a value to that existing record. So you end up with very good quality data, because ideally you're going to be using that data further down the line for insights and tax planning purposes. So it's key that it's consistent and of good quality. And then back to the human in the loop. The return goes back to the tax advisor. So this is the tax advisor, just as they are today, sitting in CCH and doing a return review. And the core functionality of Peter ends at that point. But there, for 2025, we are introducing three more options for Peter. And one of those is at the start of the process and two are at the end. The one at the start is the information request. And Peter can get involved in your April letters and tick the information off as it comes in. And then at the end of the process, Peter can file the return and with the accompanying transmission data and letter, and also do payments on account as well. But those are new for 2025. So the core functionality is the from the document into the preparation of the return. But then in 2025, three extensions: April letters, filing the return, and payments on account. Right, what we're going to do now is just bring this to life. And I've got a video which I'm going to talk over and just talk through the work that Peter's going on. And this is really the only time you get the opportunity to see Peter, because Peter is running on a server, either on-prem or typically in the cloud, all in the background, okay? But what we're going to do here is bring Peter into the foreground through the use of this video. So the starting point is a document in a document management system. To keep it very simple here, we're just using a Windows file structure. So we've got this to be processed folder that I mentioned, and we've put some documents in there, some income documents. So Peter will be monitoring this document management system, and as soon as he spots those documents, he will go to work and start doing those classification pieces that we talked about, and then doing the data extraction piece. Once he's done that, what happens is the tax users get notified that there is data for their review, and they are presented with this web tool, which is like a workflow tool to start to review the data. I'm just going to pause it here so I can explain the screen. So on the right-hand side is the source document that's come in from the client, and this is the document that Peter has extracted data from. In the middle pane is the extraction fields that Peter's been instructed to do. Because this is a P60, an employment income, therefore Peter needs to pull out things like the employer name, the tax reference, gross pay, net pay, etc., etc. So those are all the fields that Peter's pulled out. And then on the left-hand side is the to-do list for this individual. So each tax advisor is associated each tax advisor is associated with obviously a portfolio of clients via the CCH responsibilities. And Peter leverages those responsibilities to direct the documents to their attention as part of this human in the loop. So I'm now the tax advisor responsible for this client, and I'm literally just checking that the data is correct. And if I just play the video again, the checking process is extremely easy. All I need to do is point to the data field in that middle column, and it automatically tells me where the data has been extracted from the source document. So that was a P60. The next document that we've got is a bank interest, but it's slightly more complicated because the client has sewed together 5 or 6 bank statements for Peter to work with. Not a problem, he spots that and automatically produces a table format of all the data. And again, point and shoot to the various lines and it will take you to the source document. But Peter also deals with things like joint accounts, so he can recognize that we've got an ampersand or an and in the name, and therefore it's a joint account. And Peter can apply a split of 50-50, or we can use the splits that have been set up in CCH. The next document we're going to look at is where clients send a PDF in, but this time there are 2 sources. There is a P60, as you can see in that middle column, and an EIS. So you click on the P60 and it will load that document on the right hand side and show you the fields below. And again, you can point to those fields and it'll take you to the extractions. They're also color coded as well to make it really easy to tie the data up. And then we do the same with the EIS form. And then once you're happy with it, you save and submit and it goes into a queue. Right, this next document I'm going to show you is we've tripped Peter up just to show you how you would edit the information or add information. So the P11D document has got all the usual stuff on there, but the 9493 in box 13 there on the right hand side, has been deleted from the data validation. So to put it in, all you do is click on the field, and we're doing the employee name. Click on the employee name and point across to the field, and it automatically pastes it in. So you don't have to actually type any information in. If you want to edit the field, there is a manual typing option where you can put text in or notes. And then once you're happy with it, you can save and submit. So it's very easy to add information if it comes up on a document that Peter hasn't been able to extract. Perhaps there's it's a poor quality scan or something like that. There's a crease across the page, and therefore Peter couldn't see the value. The next document I've got is the dividend certificate, and then into gift aid. With gift aid, obviously very time consuming because they're quite detailed, but Peter can extract all the data, and Peter will also spot the tax year that we're working in. So for example, your client's actually rolled forward that Excel document and using it across multiple tax years, Peter would just use the appropriate column for the current tax year. The next example here is where we're getting into more unstructured data. So emails obviously completely unstructured, but not a problem for Peter. He's recognized that there are 4 areas of data to pull out. He's done some maths on the the child care and calculated the 3 times the appropriate benefit for the year. We've got some bank interest. But we also got some rental on this one. And for 2024, rental is currently out of scope. It's being put into 2025. But what you do for out of scope items is you just tag it for manual review. And what happens is it will automatically be flagged from there into your DMS system and the case holder notified it. So there's no chance, yeah, of the source being missed off at a later point. But we will come back to rental following this video. Next, we've got some qualifying loan interest. It's fairly straightforward. Just let that play. You can report if documents have been put in there by mistake and you don't want to process them. You can just flag them as an exception and it will just push it out again into a separate folder in the DMS. The penultimate document I've got to show you here is one of the more complex documents that we deal with, the tax pack, which I'm sure you all know and love. So here we've got a tax pack. And what Peter does, first of all, is he goes to the consolidated tax certificate and pulls out whatever data is on there. And then he moves into the more complex area of overseas dividends and interest. And Peter will pull out all of the detail of the dividends. So you've got the countries, the security names, the gross and the foreign tax. And if foreign tax has been applied, Peter will then look up the double tax treaty for you and calculate the double tax treaty amount. And then when posting into CCH, we'll take the lower of the two. And then on foreign dividends, Peter produces a lovely summary for you because it's the summary that's going to go into CCH Personal Tax. So you get by country, yeah, the gross and the tax and the double tax amount if applicable. And then that will go into a queue for posting into CCH. And then Peter does a similar thing with foreign interest. So you can imagine this saving your tax advisors a lot of time. Some of these packs can be 30 pages, but we've worked on tax packs that are 300 pages long. And those single documents can be saving hours of time through applying Peter to do the extraction. On this particular example, we're moving on to interest now. And again, it's pulling out the appropriate data. If there is any issues with it, you've got the option to edit. So you could pull out a different country if it didn't recognize the country and add that. And then you've got the analysis again between listed and unlisted, which is required for the posting. And we also pull out the capital gains tax as part of that as well. And then the final thing Peter's doing here is it's a Bruin Dolphin tax pack, and the information is only stored in a logo. So we've just had to transfer that text from the logo into the report, which will form part of the data entry.
Dave, is it worth just mentioning the schedule that gets created off the back of that as well?
Yeah, so we talked about working papers earlier with the PDF document, consolidating all of the client's documents as they come in. Peter also, for tax packs, produces an Excel working paper. So all of that data that's been analysed gets put into a tabbed workbook across the consolidated tax certificate, the foreign income, the foreign dividends, and the CGT. So yeah, it's a very valuable working paper. And as we mentioned, as the human in the loop have validated that data and said it's good to go, in the background, Peter will load up CCH and says it's all happening behind the scenes. You don't need to worry about it. But Peter will post all of the data through the CCH data entry screens into the return for that client. And as I say, we'll be checking the data as he puts it in as well to make sure there aren't duplicates, and also to make sure we get good quality data, so we're not just creating random new records every year during the process, during the posting process. Right, I'm just going to flip back now to the presentation. And Andy, do you want to talk about working papers?
Yeah, that's fine. So as Dave mentioned, one of the outputs is the consolidated working paper. You can see here on the right-hand side, it's got all the different income types, and it also gives you the details of what was extracted by Peter. So from a reviewer perspective, it's a really valuable tool. It's probably worth just on the clients that we're working with currently, the way that they operate, this is very much a tool for assistant managers and below. So they'll be processing the documents, they'll be reviewing the documents before going into the SA100. But saying that, what a manager, director, partner can do is if they get any documents that they need to get processed, they can just move it into the document management system, and the portfolio owner will get a notification on how that they've got work to do. And the way we deliver that is through the CCH responsibilities tab. So anyone who's responsible for that particular client will get the notification that there's work to do. So on the left-hand side, this is what's currently in scope for this tax season. Dave mentioned, and there's a couple of questions around rental. So rental will be coming into play from next year, and as will self-employment and the others that we've got listed here. So 2025 season, these areas will be in scope, potentially in a phased approach. So we will be creating the P&L for review, and then it gets inputted from that P&L. This is just an illustration. So every week we send out a Power BI dashboard on performance, and it gives you all the metrics in terms of how operationally the system's working, but most importantly, what the return on investment looks like. So this is configurable, and if you use Power BI within your own environment, we can configure it so that you can have real-time analytics on the system. So in terms of our implementation, what's required from our clients is a virtual machine, so a virtual desktop with that hardware requirements. We need remote access, and we need accounts for all the software that's going to be integrating with, namely CCH, Microsoft Office, and whichever document management system is in play. And then we need internet access from that machine. Fundamentally, once that's all in place, we can deliver this project certainly within a month, including all your training and onboarding and testing. So in terms of prepare for onboarding, we need to make sure that you've got test cases all in place. We need to make sure that the CCH operating system and software is up to date, and also think about, like what I mentioned before, what's the impact going to be on the team? And we can help with that and help with operationally how you're going to get the best out of Peter. So really having a close think about what the impact is going to be in the teams and how you can sell this within your business is really going to enable them to do more. And the feedback we're getting from our clients is it's significantly reduced the training time. The more junior workers doing this kind of work feel like they're moving towards more reviewer play, and they're now getting more time to start thinking about how they progress in their career with the likes of tax planning and advisory work. So that's really what we are all about. We are about giving back time to have more capacity to take on more, allow you to have more thinking time. So the way that our product works is we don't wait for all the information to be collated and then start processing. We start processing as soon as the documents are received by the client. And then that enables you to trigger potential advisory and contact with your clients. So ultimately, happier clients, your employees are more engaged, you can use it as a unique selling point to say, actually, you come and join us, then you're going to be fast tracked into doing more advisory type work that's going to be more enjoyable for them. And ultimately, it will have a big impact on the bottom line. So, Lee, do you want to come back in? We'll just answer a few questions. One of the questions was around, are we going to be integrating with CCH iFirm? I could answer that, but it's probably best coming from yourself.
Yeah, so at the moment, the FD Intelligence is fully integrated with CCH Personal Tax and CCH Central. With CCH iFirm, we are in discovery mode at the moment, so we'll know more information about integration in a not too distant future. So as soon as we know more, we will certainly let everybody know.
Yep.
Some more questions, Andy. Are there any plans to reduce the minimum number of clients to 1,000 from 1,000?
Yeah, so it's a question that we get asked a lot. Currently, the model works at 1,000. If you're approaching close to that, we would review. But what we're not going to be doing is sort of low 100s at this stage.
Okay, I think you answered one, Andy, but I think it's worth covering again. Does FD Intelligence integrate with SharePoint?
Yeah, so it integrates. Currently, we've got, just list them off what we've integrated with. Virtual Cabinet, CCH Document Management, SharePoint, Intap, M365, 2 bespoke document management systems, and native Windows folder structures. So I think we've got the majority covered now. And one of the questions that leads off of that was, will Peter intelligently pick up information to understand which client it's going to process? Currently, the system is set up so that someone actually has to move it into that client folder for it to kick off the processing, which is the safest way. And again, from a GDPR perspective and data compliance perspective, that will be a preferred route moving forwards.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Slightly off topic, but do you integrate or any plans to integrate with Silverfin or Caseware?
So we've done bespoke projects. So this is our product, which we do on a price per tax return. But for bespoke work, we certainly can do that. We've done a lot of work with Caseware. Not done anything with Silverfin to date, but there's no limit to that.
Okay, perfect. And I think this one will be for Dave. Can it do rental income and expenditure and complete the property pages correctly?
So that's part of the roadmap for 2025. So we've got a few approaches there. We are looking at a templated approach initially, whereby it will pick up a basic P&L and allow you to do, well, it will do some analysis itself, but allow you to eyeball the analysis by CCH expenditure categories that are set up by default in CCH. And we're also looking at using a direct link through an API into some of the main rental property providers. So there are sort of 2 that come to mind that are big players in the marketplace. So an API link to pull the data straight out into that workflow tool that we looked at to allow you to validate it in there, and then it'll go straight into CCH. And thirdly, which is slightly off piste, is we have done some work with the rental management property software companies themselves. So firms of accountants that are actually using those tools to provide an outsourced service to rental property management companies. We've provided a lot of automation with it against those tools to help them with things like bank recs and landlord statements and the like, and saved many hours across those applications because they are quite some of them quite old, shall we say, and clunky, and don't necessarily have some of the functionality that some of the new ERP type software platforms have. So hence we can do things like bank recs and the like.
Perfect. Could you outline Peter's cost, please?
Yeah, so it is hopefully a reasonably simple model. It is £30 currently per tax return.
Okay. Does Peter work with non-UK tax forms?
We've done some work around that, but yeah, it's not high up on the agenda just now in terms of our roadmap, but we've done some work around that.
Okay,
Yeah, so
perfect.
just to reiterate there, so it probably wouldn't be a Peter thing because Peter is focused on UK personal tax returns, but we do bespoke work on in other areas of tax and in other jurisdictions. But potentially we could look to productize one area of overseas tax in the future. We're looking at US tax, for example.
Yeah, and that just to add on to that, if there was a particular requirement, we can do bespoke consultancy work to fit for your practice.
Okay, perfect. Would you need to tell Peter which client the document's related to, or would Peter pick this up and file accordingly?
I think that I answered that one already. So it is very much you need to drop it into the client file.
Okay. So the biggest draw to me seems to be reducing staffing costs. Once Peter can do self-employment and rental, I don't think I'll need a junior senior clerks. Is that realistic?
Is yeah, but then is to think about the type of work you're going to be undertaking. So hopefully you can upskill these people into doing more value add work.
Okay. And the last one in the Q&A, can the documents be custom saved in the document center? So given names and references based on the content?
Does that already, yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's just a couple more in the chat. How will FD Intelligence work with MTD?
Yeah, it's going to really benefit MTD having to do it 4 times and then a sort of reconciliation at the end. So yeah, it's going to enable faster throughput and be able to for the firms to handle that kind of volume. So we're working well hand in hand with yourselves on this, and yeah, we're keeping a close eye on it and how we're going to be able to take the volumes that are going to be required for MTD.
There's, I mean, as we said in one of my slides earlier, that one of the benefits of introducing automation is where there is repetition, and obviously with MTD, yeah, rather than doing one filing, yeah, per year, we're potentially going to 5 filings a year. So automation is just ideal to solve that problem without throwing more heads at the solution.
Okay, and we've just had a couple of more questions. Does Peter identify duplicate personal tax documents to be processed?
Yeah, so one of the checks that Peter does, because we're processing them as they come in, you could get a situation where, for example, you've got a client that's really on the ball at the start of the year and has actually sent you a lot of information on the back of your information request, and then perhaps later in the year has a moment and forgets to send some of those documents to you and sends the same dividend certificate or whatever it happens to be. Peter will do a check on postings going into CCH where it's the same source and same value, and we'll basically push that back as the human in the loop, saying, "Are you really sure that you want to process this particular one?" It could be a valid one. It could be 2 interim dividends for the same amount. Looking at that example, so there is like a deduping check within the software, as well as that quality check that I talked about in terms of making sure we don't create new sources and we use existing information as and when necessary.
Okay, perfect. And final question, will there be a function for Peter to import data direct from a client's income record viewer rather than the DTA?
Yeah, I think if I understand the question correctly, yes. Where are we talking the sources?
It doesn't say.
Right. In theory, yes. I mean, we're continually extending the sort of the areas where Peter grabs the data from, and we use a combination of techniques to grab that data. Ideally, we grab it through an API, which makes it much quicker and more reliable. But we can grab it, through pure RPA, robotic process automation techniques, where literally we mimic what a user does at the keyboard. So if they're downloading data from a portal or a website, for example, we can get the robot to mimic that exact approach, and get through the various security concerns. So Peter has an account, and we can deal with multi-factor authentication and stuff like that as well.
Okay, perfect. And finally, it's just left me to say thank you very much to Dave and Andy for joining us on the session today. If you would like any more information about FD Intelligence, please contact your CCH account manager, who will be able to give you more information. And we'll also be sending a recording of this webinar after the session. So thank you very much.
Final thing, Lee, is sorry, we are getting extremely busy for February. So please do get in contact soon if this is of interest, because we are going to be dealing with it on a first served basis, first come, first served basis.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thanks for joining today's session.